Welcome to this flight of the Retail Pilot. I'm your host, Ken Pilot, former CEO and current brand advisor, retail tech investor, and board member. I'm thrilled to share with you the insights from some of retail's leaders and legends, as well as my perspective on retail today. This podcast sponsored by the following. PredictSpring is a global point-of-sale platform live in 22 countries. The platform includes mobile POS, endless aisle, fulfillment, inventory management, and clienteling, creating a true omni experience for customers and associates. PredictSpring powers Suit Supply, Converse, Lovesac, Decium, Janie and Jack, and Bouclair. Breakfast helps brands like HelloFresh, Perfume.com, and QVC increase revenue across Meta and TikTok by creating hundreds of user-generated content video ads. The Breakfast Creator Network, with over 5,000 strong, produces original content that is authentic to each platform and built to drive performance, all done in as little as 3 weeks. Check out breakfast.io. That's BRKFST.io. Welcome to this week's KPOV for week ending October 28th. Deckers reported a 25% revenue increase on the quarter. Way to go, Dave Powers and team. Also, container prices are now below where they were pre-COVID. Bringing in a container to the West Coast is less than $2,000, and coming into the East Coast is running about $2,300. That should look good for fourth quarter comps. Rumors surround ABG purchasing Topshop from ASOS, adding another big name to their growing empire. And finally, L Catterton sold its stake in Rhone to an SPV led by Tim Tebow and Steve Young and a number of other investors. And that's a wrap on the headlines for week ending October 28th. And now to our previously recorded podcast. I'm happy to have today on the Retail Pilot, Stephen Kuhl, the co-founder and CEO of Burrow, a furniture and design brand that's making it radically easier for people to feel at home through innovative, award-winning furniture and unparalleled customer experience. Launched in 2017, Burrow is one of the fastest growing furniture brands in the world and has raised venture capital from leading venture firms, including New Enterprise Associates, Y Combinator, Parkway VC, and Red and Blue Ventures. Stephen is an investor and advisor to several startups, including Commerce Bear, Sweet Plants, and DeskView. Prior to Burrow, Stephen was a growth investor at Commonfund Capital and worked in Accenture's global strategy group, specializing in operating model design. Stephen earned a BS with honors from Cornell University and an M.B.A. from the Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania. Today I have a special guest in that I'm also an investor and advisor to his company, Burrow. Today I'm with Stephen Kuhl, the CEO and co-founder of Burrow. And Stephen, happy to have you on the Retail Pilot. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Ken.
It's good to see you.
Really good to see you.
I think we were in a car together driving out east, which was more than pleasurable, even with your dog, who was not in my lap. Listen, we got a lot to cover today. It's exciting. You've got a great business that you launched a few years back. I've been involved with you along the way from time to time, and it's been awesome from my perspective to watch the growth of Burrow. Talk to us a little bit about your background and how a guy who grew up in upstate New York. Was it upstate New York or Virginia? I get the two confused.
Upstate New York, yeah.
Yeah, because they're kind of both the same in my mind. You know, they're out of that radius. Anyway, a guy that grew up in upstate New York, was a skier, an athlete. I don't think you were into retail. You may not have shopped for your own clothing. Your mom probably bought you all your clothes. How did you end up in retail?
It's a really good question. Honestly, so my background is I worked in finance and consulting out of undergrad and didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I did a stint at a place called Commonfund Capital where we did some growth equity investing. And I found that I really liked working with entrepreneurs. And then the more I sort of worked with them, I realized like as an investor, you're not really doing a lot of the work. You're just giving them money. and which is fun if you have money to do. But I wanted as a career, I didn't want to do that professionally. I wanted to actually start a company and work with people, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And so when I went to business school at Wharton with my co-founder Kabir, we got linked up through a mutual friend. And honestly, we were just in an entrepreneurship class where you have to like start a company, quote unquote. And they, the professor holds up a pitch deck for a company called Jand, which was the original name of Warby Parker. Before they came up with the name, it was just their first initials of the four guys. And they're like, this could become like your class project could become a real company like it did for these guys. And so we were just kicking around ideas one night about furniture and how hard it was to buy furniture when we moved to Philadelphia. And we were like, maybe we should work on this for the class. And this was right at the rise of Casper and all these mattress in a box companies. And we said, what if you could do for all of furniture what these companies are doing for mattresses? And so we're like, well, we'll try it for the class. And then they just kind of fell into it and started getting momentum. And before we knew it, we were raising money. We'd gotten accepted into Y Combinator to work on it over the summer between our first and second years. And it just snowballed, and we fell more and more in love with the opportunity. And the next thing you know, we've got a bunch of retail stores. We're selling millions of dollars of furniture online, which if you told me I was going to do that 10 years ago, I would have thought you were nuts.
But step back for a second. So you and Kabir, God knows what you were drinking. You come up with this idea to put a sofa in a box because the Casper is putting their mattress in a box. So you can do something similar. It's a modular concept that you come up with that can ship. Were you thinking UPS at the time? Was that part of your thought process, but something easy to ship and easy to assemble? That was the headline.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We knew, so we mapped it out from both a business perspective and a consumer perspective. And the business perspective was, hey, we can deliver higher quality furniture for less money by shipping it all in UPS or FedEx small parcel boxes. You can pack more into a container if you're shipping anywhere, from a factory overseas or from a factory here to another country in the future. We can store it for less in warehouses. Any 3PL can pick, pack, and ship out boxes if they're small parcels, so we don't have to have our own warehousing space. And then it's just cheaper to ship to customers. The additional benefit of having a modular design in boxes is, like, for instance, with our current Nomad collection, there's about 50-ish boxes that we keep in inventory. And from those 50-ish boxes, we can make over 23,000 combinations of seating of all different shapes and sizes and colors and everything. And we can offer 1 week delivery on over 23,000 configurations of this one style of sofa. If you were going to offer that in a traditional, furniture model, you'd have to have warehouses, like multiple warehouses the size of MetLife Stadium, like all over the country, to be able to offer that. So we were like, we could hold less inventory, turn it faster. We can make the entire logistics aspect of this operation cheaper. And that's important because of the consumer side, which is that people are increasingly shopping for everything online, including furniture, which now sounds obvious, but in 2016, when we started talking about this, wasn't the case, right? Like very, very little furniture was sold online at the time. But we knew that's where it was heading. So we're like, if you're going to optimize your entire business model for e-commerce, then you should probably optimize your supply chain for it too, as opposed to investing in like big, bulky, expensive warehousing and logistics that most furniture companies have to deal with. And then on the consumer side, it was just like, the mirror of that is allow people to shop for things online, make a couple of easy selections, like pick your color, pick your size, pick your style, very basic decisions that build confidence. Don't make people pick from 50 different shades of gray fabric, right? That you're like, I don't know which one is the right one. Like, just give them one, like make it easy, and then deliver it really fast in a week, and you can put it together yourself. And so kind of like if design within reach and IKEA had a baby, that's like what we had in mind, like high quality, high design, but really easy, not knowing that every furniture factory that we would approach with this idea would tell us, you guys are really dumb. This won't work. Please leave.
But you've stayed the course. You moved from Mexico to Vietnam. I think you're now back in Mexico with a Chinese partner. So you've done a lot to really work on improving the sourcing. And what started as a sofa company in a box is now a furniture company in a box, or in boxes, I should say. You grew out of a hotbed. I mean, Wharton has truly been known, the business school has been known as a hotbed. There a number of incredible startups came out of Wharton. And I think a number of you also followed course relative to branding the company. I believe when you launched, you used Red Antler, who was also responsible for launching a number of other D2C brands. That was
That's right.
a good experience for you and great branding.
It was Red Antler. So again, like a lot of this stuff was so new to us. Like we had this general concept that strategically made sense. And that's kind of like how my brain works is it's just like strategy, navigating for the future. Like how do you build there? And I kind of approach everything thinking like I can figure it out. And then there's all these different components that you can rely on experts for. And they're experts in building a brand identity to communicate like, okay, you want to do all these, like lead with all these value props and make convenience and comfort, king for your consumer. Like we can help build a brand that communicates that. And so we worked with them on naming, visual identity, storytelling, all these different things that like Kabir and I had never done before. And they were great partners in that and kind of guided us through that process.
Fast forward, tell us a little bit about the size of the business today, how you're reaching the customers, stores, e-commerce, wholesale, and maybe a little bit more about where the company is today in terms of employees, et cetera.
Yeah, so we're about 70-ish people today, including our showrooms. So we have 4 showrooms right now. And
just so we're clear, showrooms are stores. That's where the customer is shopping your product, but you're calling it showrooms, but it's open to the public.
Correct. It just means you can't walk out with merchandise. We will ship it to you, which works out well with our with our model. I don't know of anybody who wants to carry, 6 boxes home. Yeah.
Probably very few, but
So our 4 stores, and then we just crossed 100 million last year in top line sales.
Wow, that's great. Happy investor here. Thank you.
Happy to have you. But yeah, very proud of that. But that's kind of about the scale that we've gotten to. And yeah.
So you have online and stores. From what I know, that's probably 95% of your business today.
About 90% is online. Yeah.
And then is there a wholesale model? We've been talking a lot on the podcast about how D2C brands are really expanding to include wholesale in their mix. Is that more challenging just based on where your margins are, or is that part of future strategy?
Margin wise, it is tough, but also I think from a customer experience perspective, it's challenging because we want to offer the best versions of fewer products in the home space. And so customers come to us because they know that we're going to deliver quickly. It's going to be a great experience, easy experience setting it up. And the products that they buy are going to be more comfortable, functional, durable, etc. But we kind of put function over fashion. It's not to say like when we do care about what the products look like, but we're not just purely making fashion statements with our products. Like we're actually trying to solve problems in your life, like knowing and understanding the role that a product plays in your home. So we want to own that entire experience for our customers. And in comparison, at a lot of furniture retailers, you're browsing through hundreds or thousands of options and you're kind of picking solely based on style and aesthetic. And it's hard for us to stand out in that model and communicate the value props, right? We kind of want to like nurture you through the journey ourselves and guide you along the way. And showrooms are an important part of that process too for customers that do want to try things out in person. So it just becomes harder with like selling wholesale. That being said, we do have some partnerships with West Elm. So we sell some of our shelving on West Elm's website. We have a partnership with Best Buy. So you can buy a lot of our products on bestbuy.com. And we're kind of working through with them which products make sense to feature and focus on in this partnership versus just listing everything on the website. And that's kind of it. And then we have a bunch of trade partnerships, and we have partnership like we work on with you, furnishing some apartments and whatnot in bulk. And so we have a lot of accounts like that as well. But for the most part, yeah, it's like 95% direct to consumer.
Yeah, there's definitely an opportunity in the contract space. Your product is durable. I think if anybody sees a video looking at a Burrow sofa, they're sure to see at least a dog and probably a glass of wine spilling on that. Not the dog was drinking the wine, but maybe knocked over the glass, but how easily the fabric cleans, which is amazing. So really good for young families, good for kids, good for dogs, good for moving because it goes in an elevator, never have a problem with the last mile with your product. You must have a number of design engineers on the team just continuing to stay focused on shipping product. Is all the product you still this UPSable?
Everything's UPSable. We briefly flirted with the idea of having some larger products be LTL, but just decided we didn't like that experience. And this is what we're known for. And this is our differentiator. And, it's a hard challenge to solve. And yes, we do have two designers in-house who also have like product development backgrounds. We have a full-time packaging engineer who works with our team. Like that's all he does is design how these products are going to ship. And then we have two folks full-time on just product development, working closely with our factories, R&D departments to do the prototyping process and everything. And then two folks on our sourcing team who own those relationships with a lot of the factories. Plus, we have a handful of folks on the ground in each of these countries doing QC and whatnot.
And just so everyone knows, you actually do not need tools to assemble your furniture. It's pretty much
That's right.
And a friend.
Most of our furniture you can do without tools. We have softened on that mandate a little bit because there are a handful of products where we've just discovered along the way that it's like, you know what, you can do all these things with your hand, but sometimes with a tool that we will include with it. So you don't need your own tools, but with a certain tool, it does make the process a little bit easier, especially for things that need to be assembled one time permanently. It's kind of nice to be able to crank them down. But for the most part, you could say no tools.
Who do you have in the space? And we both know the space well, obviously, but who would you say are some of the key competitors out there? If I'm looking at a Burrow sofa, I might also be shopping where?
West Elm and Crate and Barrel are the two most common ones that we hear, which we love. And that makes sense, right? Because they're just by sheer size and scale, price point wise, it's comparable. And they've got great style, those brands. So, and that's the top one. And that's great for us because that's who we're competing with. And we feel like our customers are looking there and they're looking at us and they're saying, okay, for similar price point and quality, I can get a more durable, comfortable, functional product and I can get it faster and not pay for shipping. And that's something that we win all the time. And the only reason why a customer should pick somebody else besides us is if we just don't offer a specific style that you're looking for.
Let's pivot, Stephen. I want to talk a little bit about your journey to the CEO role. You founded the business with Kabir. We had a number of conversations when you guys were co-CEOs. How did you ultimately determine and why did you decide to be the sole CEO? And Kabir is now, he's the chief technical officer. He's the CTO.
That's right. Yeah. And Ken, I do want to say thank you for all your help in guiding us through that experience early on. For the listeners, Ken was walking us through, helping us talk through, having some hard conversations about roles and responsibilities, which I think a lot of founders go through, but it was really nice to hear your perspective. And so what that looked like was in the beginning, we were co-CEO, like you said, because it was two of us. And then when we got to Y Combinator, it was kind of funny. They were like, you guys need to not be co-CEO because what that communicates to investors is you can't pick who's in charge. And typically that's driven by ego. And CEO is a role. It's not like you guys are co-founders. And so anyways, they were like, you shouldn't be co-CEO. That's a red flag. So we dropped that title and we were just co-founders. But then as we grew the company, right, and we started having employees and started raising money, people want to know who the CEO is, right? And they want to know who the CEO is because they want to know who to talk to for basically like raising money and who has the ultimate like decision power on certain things. And then so Kabir and I had said, we're just going to like let things play out and see what happens. But then when it actually came time to say like, who is the CEO? I think that was where you had a really impactful conversation with Kabir of, you guys are co-founders. That never changes. Like one of you could leave the company and you're still both co-founders. And that's the most important role as it pertains to getting this thing up and running. And we both did need each other. Like Burrow would not exist without Kabir and Burrow would not exist without me. And so the two of us were equally responsible for that. And so then I think having the conversation of just like, what role are we playing on a day-to-day basis? And the title that you have should just reflect what your actual role is. And, I think that's easier for me. That was easier for me in that situation to accept what my role is, because my role is to be at the top, right? And for Kabir, it was to take a role that's not CEO. And I give him every bit of credit in the world for maturely looking at it and saying, like, yeah, I'm co-founder and Ken helped me see that. And, you know, I'm now CTO and this is my role, and I'm going to be just as every bit important to the company now and in the future because of that. So, and I don't think everybody does that well, right? You see a lot of these companies, startups, where just that little title thing ends up getting in the way of, it's like, it doesn't matter. Like, we should all just take whatever role is available and makes sense to help us be as successful as possible.
Let's take a quick break with a word from our sponsors.
Bluecore's software solution turns anonymous online shoppers into known customers and repeat customers. Bluecore enables retailers to personalize and optimize their email, SMS, and site marketing campaigns by delivering targeted and relevant messages based on where every customer is in their journey. Bluecore replaces annoying high-volume messaging with high-value messaging. Customers include Alo Yoga, Neiman Marcus, and Gap. Retech is the leading innovation hub for everything retail technology. Based in the heart of Startup Nation, we have access to a growing network of over 500 tech companies building cutting-edge solutions for the future of retail. Join me and the team at the annual event Retech Disrupt, April 15th to the 17th in Tel Aviv, Israel. See you there and see retail innovation in action. Well, it looks like it's worked out well, and Kabir has done, as you said, a great job just leading the tech side of the company, because there are plenty of tech challenges. And let's talk about technology a bit. How have you leveraged technology to this point to really build the brand? And where do you see investing in technology to continue to scale?
So we have, every part of our business is tech enabled, right? Like our storefront, like our biggest storefront is our website, right? And so we have incredibly complex tech stack for supporting that, especially because our products are a little bit more complicated than most products, in that we have like parent SKUs and child SKUs and different variants. And to support that logistically on the back end to plug into, because we don't own our own warehouses, right? And we don't, like, we work with a whole slew of partners from FedEx to 3PLs to freight partners, and we have to connect, and then our factories, and we have to connect all those dots seamlessly to handle and transact with on millions of dollars of sales every single week. So that's all tech enabled. Obviously, the marketing tech stack is really important, and that's ever evolving. There's data infrastructure, like how do we get smarter with reaching our customers, finding them, re-engaging them in the most efficient way possible. And right now we're in this like really interesting spot where, as you fast forward into the future, AI is rapidly going to become a huge part of how we market to customers. How, like, everything from like making ads for people, personalization for that, helping them shop, how we create like the actual creative content, like the photos and everything, mixing of rendering and real photos and or just like AI generated stuff. Like, we're at this really interesting point where like that could change how people shop for furniture, not just furniture, but every consumer category. And I think everybody wants to be on the front end of that changing technology, but nobody really knows what the right answer is. And all of the early companies, when they pitch you on it, it's like, well, these results don't look great, so I'm not really going to sign with you. But I do know that I need to pick a lane soon and get on board with it, because it's going to be huge.
Stephen, share with us your tech stack, and it's cool to name names if you're cool with that, just to give other companies who are listening. This is a $100 million plus company. Who are you using for e-commerce? You mentioned CDP. Are there or any platforms that you're, let's just say, happy with versus ones you may not?
So I don't know. And this is like partially like I'm so spoiled having Kabir as a co-founder that I can just be like, that's a Kabir. Like, typically, I would say that's a Kabir question. I do know a few things about our tech stack. And so we're on BigCommerce for our e-com site. Our ERP is NetSuite. We are very happy with both of those. And then we just use a variety of additional tools on the marketing tech stack side, and then also like the data infrastructure side.
You're not really building much in-house. It's mostly all rented or all SaaS product that you're using.
That's right. We do very little. In the past, we have tried building some things in-house, and it's just caused, I think, a lot of problems. My recommendation to people early on is like, you want to control every aspect of it because you want it to be so like bespoke for your own company, but you're going to waste so much time and effort doing that you're actually going to create a worse experience for your customers. And sometimes you're just better off plugging into templates that already exist from other people. That being said, BigCommerce is headless commerce, but it allows us to create our own templates that we can then reuse over and over again. So it becomes a little bit better. And yeah, we love that. And that's kind of where we are differentiated. And that's why we picked BigCommerce, is because we have very unique products that we need to do unique storytelling and organization of on the site.
I mean, headless is definitely the way to go. And for those listening, just the easy way, at least I found the easy way to wrap your head around what headless commerce means. Imagine an engine, and engines generally require a specific spark plug to allow the engine to function. If it's a headless engine, it can take any spark plug or the newest spark plug, which consistently updates the engine and allows the engine to take the best spark plug versus taking only the one that fits when it was originally built. So it allows you greater flexibility to find the newest and latest platforms to plug into, which allows you to scale your company. So a lot more companies are moving to headless. Certainly Shopify has a headless aspect to it. There are others out there as well, Fabric Commerce, to mention a few, but it seems to be a definite trend in the business today. Let's talk a little bit about marketing. You mentioned marketing. It's gotten a lot tougher to market to the customer with the iOS changes. What is Burrow doing to reach their customer that's working?
So we've always wanted to have a diversified marketing channel mix, to never be too reliant on any one channel, knowing that like, if Facebook costs go up dramatically, we don't want to be in a position where now we can't be profitable because of that. So honestly, we're just trying to be diversified and just constantly monitoring where are people spending their time. Because ultimately, it's like, how do you get the most impressions in front of people for the lowest cost in a way that's actually meaningful to them, that they'll remember, right? And so people do still spend a lot of time on Instagram. People do still search a lot for furniture online, especially our customers if they're going to shop online. So the Google ecosystem is huge for us. TikTok and Reels, which is, Instagram's response to it. Those are things that people are spending a lot of their time on. And so we're in this like early testing phase of like, how do you deliver content to educate customers on those platforms about us in a way that they actually want to consume. And so far, like we just launched our Shift sleeper sofa, our first sleeper sofa that did amazing right out of the gate. And we didn't spend anything on marketing, but somebody posted a video on Reels and it got hundreds of thousands of views, and that caused a spike in sales. And so I think it's about leaning into that like style of content, like, and figure out how can we fuel that. I just had like a 2-hour conversation with Ryan about this a week ago. He was giving me a lot of advice because he's obviously scaled Jolie using TikTok quite successfully.
And Ryan, who he's referring to, is the founder of Jolie, who we had on the podcast a few weeks back. You and I did couple of crazy projects together. I think I talked you into opening up a 400-foot store in a couple of malls, which we did, and we tried to do them unmanned, if I recall correctly, using Ring to answer any customer questions that came into our space. And then we also did a vacant storefront window takeover, trying to communicate who Burrow was as a brand and, hey, we're coming to the neighborhood. Any of those still out there? At least there are plenty of vacant storefronts to communicate through.
So those are both really fun experiences. The mall ones were great. And then I think they filmed an episode of Impractical Jokers right around our like pop-up in one of the malls. And so I still get text messages from people that are like watching reruns of that show. And they're like, hey, Burrow is all over this episode of Impractical Jokers. So we got really lucky there and basically got free advertising. But the empty storefronts thing, I think, was brilliant. It just ended up being logistically a lot of work comparatively.
Yeah.
But what Ken's referring to is Ken noticed that there's all these empty storefronts, especially in New York City. I mean, not hard to notice, but he was like, I know a lot of these landlords. What if we did some advertising in their storefronts while they're looking for tenants? Like we could just come in, put in some advertising. And I had recently gone to Harry Potter World, Orlando, and saw these like interactive displays that you could play around with. And so then we went to the team at Red Antler and we're like, hey, we've got these interactive store like ideas from Harry Potter World. Ken has all these locations that he knows the landlords that might be able to rent us just the storefront, like the storefront window for very, very, very cheap rent.
Right. Literally like 20 feet wide by 7 feet deep, and you can still show the store to a prospective tenant.
Exactly. And so I think we were in like 5 locations around the city. And what we came up with was this idea of, at the time, we had this big marketing campaign of comfort and doing nothing, like just leaning into enjoying your furniture at home. And we had some Subway ads. It was a great campaign. And then we came up with these Lords of Leisure, which were like these Zoltar-esque characters that if you texted the number on the window, they were sitting on a Burrow sofa and they would light up and tell you your fortune that was related to comfort. And we got a ton of press on that, actually. So that's where it worked, is like we got a lot of press for that. And a lot of people saw that. And it was not that much money. I want to say it was like the entire thing in 5 storefronts was the equivalent cost of like one big billboard.
Yeah, that was fun. That was a fun project. But 2 things before we get into the last part of the podcast. Got to ask you a little bit about what it's like in the post-COVID era, creating a workforce, a hybrid workforce. What is the environment like for Burrow at the office?
So we are in the office Tuesday through Thursday, and I think that's a really nice mix. I mean, I would like to tell you that we pioneered that model, but I think we were one of 10 million companies that pioneered that model post-COVID. But everybody during COVID kind of proved that they could work remotely, or a lot of companies, right? But it still neglects this interactive experience that you have in the office where you're having side conversations, back and forth chatter, where you don't have to schedule a formal meeting just to have a conversation with somebody and make progress on things. And so being in the office, there's just a level of efficiency and also then, personal interconnectedness that happens, which is especially important for young people. So we knew we wanted to be back in the office. Also, we do product reviews all the time in person. So you have to be physically here for those days. And so I think that the future is going to be what we're doing, which is like Fridays are gone. No one's ever coming back to an office on Fridays unless you work at a hedge fund.
Thursday is the new Friday. Let's face it, right? We're already thinking about half-day Thursdays.
It is. Yeah, I think somebody accidentally put in a request for a summer Friday on a Thursday, actually. So I was like, wait a second. What's happening? And then Mondays, it's kind of nice. I mean, Mondays are always so meeting heavy anyways, and it's kind of easy to do these meetings, group meetings over Zoom. It's probably easier actually than cramming into a big conference room where not everyone has access to the table and whatever. So plus, I think there is a psychological aspect to the Sunday scaries and going back to work on Monday for a lot of people, that it just kind of gets reduced a little bit when you're like, I can just roll out of bed and open up my laptop as opposed to having to go into the office. So I don't know. I like the Tuesday through Thursday model, and we've gotten some good feedback from our employees on it.
That's great. Now I'm going to ask you the tougher question. A lot of success here, but profitability has been a bit more of a challenge to come by.
Yeah.
How much have you raised? What has been the blocking factor to achieve profitability, and when do you get there?
So we've raised, I think, about 65 million in total, which is not nothing, but not anywhere close to what many of the other consumer product companies that are venture backed have raised. From day one, we kind of architected this P&L of what we could achieve at scale. What kind of gross margins could we get to, which for us, we knew with our business model, we could achieve north of 50% gross margins, including free delivery to a customer, which is unheard of. Nobody does that. But with our, the logistics model that I described earlier, we knew we could get there, which translates to, at scale, probably 15 to 20% EBITDA margins. That's not unprecedented in furniture at scale. But that's where we always knew we wanted to get to. But when we started, our gross margins were horrible because we were working with the wrong factories at the wrong scale and still figuring things out, right? Making mistakes, and we're still testing out pricing and all these different things that we needed to calibrate as we were scaling. We actually got to profitability in the second half of 2020, and then all the supply chain things happened where, freight went through the roof, raw material prices went up, and a lot of these things were not permanent changes, right? They were just short term, but we're still kind of like fading out of that environment. And that's been the biggest hindrance to profitability.
Yeah, just so people are aware, Stephen's alluding to container costs went from $2,500 to $3,000 a container, all the way up to $25,000 a container. So when your containers cost as much as the cost of goods in the container, it's a problem. So, and it takes a while to work that, as you're saying, through the supply chain. So so you're poised now for profitability? Is that where the company is today? You're on the precipice?
That's right. Yeah, exactly. We are right around break even right now. And then by next year should be our first full year of profitability, which is exciting.
Excellent. That is exciting. Good to know as a friend and investor. Keep up the good work, Mr. Kuhl. All right. Are you ready for rapid fire?
Rapid fire.
Okay. These are particularly challenging questions. I wish you luck. Favorite streamed show?
Right now, The After Party. That's off the top of my head. I just started watching it.
Who would you most like to meet?
Ricky Gervais.
Favorite place to vacation?
The Hamptons.
Which brand do you most admire?
Lululemon.
If you could join a band tomorrow, which band would it be?
Any DJ group. It seems like they do not a lot of work, but make a lot of money.
And with that, we're going to land this flight of the Retail Pilot. Stephen Kuhl, it's been a pleasure to have you on board. Love having you as a friend, as someone that I've invested in, and we will always be close.
Yes, Ken. And I look forward to hanging out at your Hamptons house many more times in the future. That's why it's my favorite vacation spot.
We can make that happen. And next time I'll make sure I prepare your food.
Sounds good. All right. Thank you, Ken.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's flight of the Retail Pilot. And please give us a review on your favorite podcast platform.